Andruw Jones, once again, is not going in the Hall of Fame this year. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Wednesday, January 22nd, your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on Twitter, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. And in the intro, we say news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. We have exactly that. We have news, we have notes, we have updates in today's episode. 3 different segments, all about different topics. We're going to talk about some fast-moving prospects in the third segment. We're going to talk about some news I broke on Tuesday about Tyler Matzek and his chances of playing in 2025. But first, we're going to talk about the news that Andruw Jones, once again, will not be part of the Baseball Hall of Fame class. This is something where absolutely incredibly frustrated that Andruw Jones, one of the greatest two-way players in baseball history, in my opinion, is not going to be part of the Hall of Fame class. He finished with 66.2% of the votes. You need 75% for induction. And this was his 8th year on the ballot, and he's gone up every year, but the rate of the increase has slowed, right? He had double-digit jumps in 2020 and 2021. He went up 8 points in 22, and then another good jump in 23. But from 23 to 24, he went up 3.5%. From 24 to 25, he went up, I think it's like, I can't do math in my head, like 4.8%. He's only got 2 more chances. He's gained 8.1% in the last 2 years. If he gains another 8.1 percentage points, he'll be short of 75%. And the more frustrating thing is I'm going to call them secret ballots. The Baseball Writers Association of America, you have the ability to have your ballot published with your name on it. You can either release it yourself, or the Hall of Fame will release it, or you can opt out, or I guess you have to opt into your name being released with your name on it. Over 80% of writers usually have their names released with their ballots, but not all of them do. And frustratingly, Andruw Jones loses quite a few percentage points on the private ballots every year. There's a crowdsourced Hall of Fame tracker every year. Going into Tuesday night's announcement, Andruw Jones was at 74%. He finished with 66%. So for him to lose 8 percentage points in the final ballot, the secret ballots had to be 14% less likely to vote for him than the public ballots. And most of them, we will never get a name. We will never get an explanation as to why they didn't vote for him. And here's the frustrating thing. Andruw Jones's resume is legitimately Hall of Fame worthy, okay? I have a really dumb comparison that I'm going to do for you real quick so that you can have an idea of these two players, okay? Player A and Player B. Player A, in his first 10 full MLB seasons, put up 57.9 WAR. Player B put up 54.8. Okay, right? The remainder of their career, Player A had 6 more seasons at 4.7 WAR. Player B had 9 seasons at 5.2 WAR. So that means, yes, Player A finished with more career WAR than Player B. Player A, who had a higher first 10 full seasons WAR total, is Andruw Jones, who missed it on his 8th ballot. Player B, who came in 3.1 WAR below Andruw Jones in his first 10 seasons, and then played 9 total seasons after that, so 3 more than Andruw, and only beat him by half a WAR, is Ichiro Suzuki, and he was 1 vote away from being unanimous. But wait, there's more. I have more, okay? Andruw Jones is one of only 2 players to have more than 4 seasons with 150 games played in center field and 25 home runs. He has 10. The other player is Willie Mays, who also has 10. Nobody else in MLB history has more than 4 seasons of 150 games played in center field and 25 home runs. Andruw Jones won 10 Gold Gloves in center field. And do you know who told Terry Pendleton that he thought Andruw Jones was the greatest defensive center fielder in baseball history? Willie Mays. Willie Mays, the person who people often say, who was the better center fielder, Andruw Jones or Willie Mays? Willie Mays says it was Andruw Jones. There are 3 players in MLB history to have hit 400 home runs and have 20 or more defensive WAR in their careers. Cal Ripken Jr., Adrian Beltre, Andruw Jones. But the issue that happened, like what happens to Andruw Jones in this voting, is the fact that when you look at his statistics, he took a dive off a cliff after age 30. From ages 31 through 35, his final 5 seasons, he was worth 1.7 WAR with a 210 batting average. And he struck out 354 times. And everybody says, oh, well, he was done after 30. Yeah, he debuted at age 19. He was, I think, the second youngest player to ever hit a home run in the World Series. He hit a home run in the World Series at age 19. He debuted at age 19, and by the time he turned 30, he had 61 WAR. Like, if Andruw Jones had debuted at age 23 and had that drop-off come at age 34 instead of age 30, he'd have been in 4 ballots ago. But because Andruw Jones debuted so early, started his first full year in 1997 at age 20, he never went below 153 games played in center field. And he also never went below 26 home runs hit during that stretch, including the runner-up for MVP in 2005 after he led baseball with 51 home runs and led the National League with 128 RBI while winning a Gold Glove in center field. In case you can't tell, I'm a little annoyed that Andruw Jones is not in the Hall of Fame, and I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to get in his final 2 years of eligibility. Because we've seen this before. Braves fans have seen this before with Dale Murphy. Because Dale Murphy was another player where his peak was one of, if not the best players in baseball. Dale Murphy won back-to-back MVP awards. He had a stretch from 1979 through 1987 where he hit 284. He averaged 32 home runs a year after moving from catcher to center field. But because he debuted at age 20, he fell off a cliff because of injuries after 1990. And he was essentially done as a impact-making baseball player at age 34. He played for a couple more years. He played for Philly. He played 1 year for Colorado, but it wasn't the same, and he was done. And full disclosure, Dale Murphy was my favorite player growing up. I love Dale Murphy. I have a baby blue Dale Murphy hat over there, and I keep trying to get it worked out to go to the Dale Murphy experience. But Dale Murphy's another, he should be in the Hall of Fame. And what I don't want is for an Eras committee to have to put in Dale Murphy and Andruw Jones. I would be remiss if I didn't give a congratulations to Billy Wagner. He did get in. Reminder with Billy Wagner. He spent the final season of his career in Atlanta. I'd like to argue it was one of the best seasons of his career. Age 38 in 2010. He was an all-star, pitched in 71 games with a 1.43 ERA, the lowest ERA of his career in any season. Had 37 saves, pitched a really nice 69 in the third innings, the 104 strikeouts, only 5 homers allowed all year, and mentored both Craig Kimbrell and Johnny Venters that year. So even after he spent 1 year in Atlanta, but he had an outsized impact on the Atlanta Braves. He was selected in his 10th and final year of eligibility. So congratulations to Billy Wagner. Hopefully Andruw Jones is there with you in the class of 2026 or the class of 2027. And the next time the Eras committee meets, they are discussing the era that Dale Murphy would be in. Hopefully he is selected and put into the Hall of Fame. I will probably make a trip to Cooperstown specifically for that. In just a minute, I broke some news on Tuesday night about Tyler Matzek. We'll get to that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. It's a really fun new partnership that we have with these guys. Go to the link in the episode description, promo code BRAVES to sign up for Underdog Fantasy. New customers place a deposit. You get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free play. The way that this works is you go through and you create a lineup of players where you look at their stat projections for whatever it might be. If it's NFL action, it might be, if it's a quarterback, passing yards, combined passing and rushing yards. It might be rushing and receiving touchdowns for the quarterback. If it's a running back, obviously, carries. You usually have number of carries, yardage, touchdowns, all of that stuff. You choose higher or lower. And depending on what you choose, when you choose it, you could earn up to 1,000 times your money on your entry. They have some really cool special features like vulture protection. If your running back carries the ball on the drive, but inside the 10-yard line, somebody else gets the carry for a touchdown, they give it to a wide receiver on an end around, something like that, you still get credit as if your running back got the touchdown. So tons of little fun things like that. Again, Underdog Fantasy, links in the episode description, promo code BRAVES to get your bonus cash. Sign up today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby doing a trio of 2-packs. We talked about Andruw Jones and Billy Wagner in the last one. The next one is some news. I broke the news on social media on Tuesday night that Tyler Matzek is not done pitching. It came out earlier in the day that Jesse Chavez, who talked to Susan Slusser of the San Francisco Chronicle, not quite sure why he talked to her, but he did, that he wants to come back for his next season. And then Tyler Matzek is, as I reported on social media, he is working with a private facility in Phoenix, Arizona. And on Wednesday, today, he is scheduled to have a pro day. He's been working on getting some of the velocity back that he just never really recovered after that 2021 season. Even in 2022, his velocity was down a little bit. It was significantly down last year before he got hurt and went back on the IL. Coming back from Tommy John, he just never really got that velo back. And I've got all the stats in a minute that he's been pretty reliant on the fastball velo to be successful. But let's get to Chavez first. Going into last year, he talked to Sirius XM Radio that he more than likely was done. He didn't absolutely say this was his final season, but he said in all likelihood he was finished after 2024. And he ended up having an okay year. It wasn't the caliber of what he was doing in 23. Obviously, 23, he was on track to make the All-Star game before he took that comebacker to the shin from Miguel Cabrera, fractured his shin and missed half the season, right? He had a 156 ERA when he got hurt in 23. Last year, 2-2, 3.13 ERA in 63 to third innings, 55 strikeouts to 19 walks, gave up 10 home runs, which is the kind of concerning thing. And there's some pros and cons to, do you bring back Jesse Chavez for his age 41 season, right? I think, okay, so one, his time in Atlanta from 21 through 24, he pitched to a 2.91 ERA, right? Now, Baseball Reference is weird. He also played for the Cubs and the Angels in those seasons, and you can't really isolate that out. It's just kind of funky how that works. Because Chavez played for Atlanta early in his career in 2010, you also can't pull just his Atlanta stats because it gives you that 2010 season where he was not good, 5.89 ERA. So it kind of skews everything. But his combined ERA for Atlanta, mostly a little bit with the Cubs, a little bit with the Angels, was 2.91 in that 4-year stretch. So he's been additive. He's been a good player in the bullpen for you. If you were to bring him back, there's a couple reasons why it would make sense. He wasn't used like this a lot in 24, but in 23, he did get a lot of like higher leverage roles. He actually had a save for Atlanta too. They've used him as an opener at times. He was an opener in 22 and in 23. I think a little bit in 21 as well. Like in the postseason, I think him and Dylan Lee both started playoff games for the Braves. And his walk rate is still pretty good. 7.2% last year. MLB average is like 8.3%. So some things you like. There's also some things you don't like. His strikeout rate last year kind of cratered, 20.8%. MLB average on strikeout rate is right there at 20.8%. So he cratered to average. But the couple years before with Atlanta, 27.1%, 28%, 27.1%. So it's got significantly worse last season. It dropped, again, 7-8% over where it had been in the previous years he was in Atlanta. Again, I mentioned the significantly increased home run rate. It's like a 3.8% home run rate. It's the worst he's had since he's been in Atlanta. He went from 1.4% in 23 to 3.8. So more than double his home run rate. And I think some of that kind of came back to his velocity. Some of the lowest velocities of his career. His sinker was down to an average of 90.7 miles an hour, and his cutter, 88.5. So the stuff has gotten worse. It feels like this would be a minor league deal at best kind of situation, and you see how he's doing. I don't know if the Braves are going to want to do that or not. If I'm picking one of these guys, I'd go for Matzek instead. Matzek's been doing a lot of the biomechanical work. Like I said, he's been with Terra Sports in Phoenix, Arizona. Again, the pro day, maybe the pro day is on Thursday, not Wednesday. Either way, pro day coming up. And reportedly, he was sitting in the 94s last week in the cage. And typically, among veterans, when you look at what you do in a cage versus what you do in the game, you're going to be seeing about 2 to 3 mile an hour increases in the game. So if he's sitting 94 in the cage, it's probably going to be closer to 96 to 97 in an actual game. And that lines up with the most successful season for him in Atlanta. Okay. So 2020, 4-3 record, 2.79 ERA. 2021, 2.57 ERA. 2022, it goes up to a 3.50. Blows out his elbow. Tommy John misses all of 23. Pitches only 10 innings in 2024 with an ERA of 9.90. But his fastball velocities, and this is not the only reason, but I think this is kind of indicative of what we're talking about here. In 2020, he was throwing an average of 94.3 miles an hour and allowing a 225 batting average, right? In 2021, that velocity goes up to an average of 96. That batting average allowed goes down to 192. So he improves 33 points of batting average allowed when he adds about 1.5 miles to the fastball, okay? He goes back to 94 miles an hour in 22, where his ERA went up by almost a full run. And then in 2024, when he was terrible for the Braves, again, ERA almost 10, it was 11 earned runs in 10 innings on 16 hits, 93.6 miles an hour, and a batting average of 414. The fastball just cratered. So that's what he's been doing at Terra Sports, is working to get back some of that velocity and work on the mechanics that just never really seem to be right after the Tommy John. This is a thing that happens sometimes. When you have a catastrophic arm injury, you have more than one, you have the surgery, things take a while to come back. Typically, the stuff comes back before the control, not necessarily. Very small sample size. He only walked 3 guys in that 10 innings because everybody else was too busy getting hits off of him, I guess. But if I'm picking one of these guys, I feel like if Tyler Matzek's fastball is where it needs to be, he's the guy that I want. Because one, he'll be 34 this upcoming season. His birthday is he's 34 now. He turned 34 in October. So he's 34 now. But then also, we love Tyler Matzek for what he did in the NLCS in 2021. That inning where it was Betts, and I think Steven Souza and Pujols, and he just mows them down, bailing out Luke Jackson. We love Tyler Matzek, and I would love for him to come back and play as long as he wants to and as long as he's able to hang at the major league level. So we're rooting for you, Tyler. Now I'm checking my notes. I think the pro day is on Thursday, not Wednesday. But either way, we're rooting for you, buddy. In just a second, the final 2-pack of the show, 2 pitching prospects who I think could move rather quickly next year. We'll talk about them next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby, final segment of the Wednesday show. We talked about the Hall of Fame. I had many rant about Andruw Jones not getting in. We talked about Jesse Chavez and Tyler Matzek not being done yet. This final segment, I want to talk about 2 pitching prospects that I think could move rather quickly. I've talked about, I think, one of these guys before, but it's Herick Hernandez and Blake Burkhalter. Okay? College arms taken, early in their drafts. Burkhalter was a second rounder in 2022 out of Auburn. Full disclosure, I covered Blake Burkhalter at Auburn. I was hired by Sports Illustrated as a freelancer to cover the Auburn baseball team that season. So I got to witness them go into Omaha. That was a really cool kind of experience, but I covered him in college. Actually, I was the one who broke the story for Sports Illustrated that he was having Tommy John after being drafted by Atlanta. Right? He blew out his elbow in spring training and had Tommy John and missed all of 2023. I was the one who broke that story because I knew him and a bunch of people, his family and all of that, from being at Auburn. So, full disclosure on that, I know Blake Burkhalter. I've talked to him before in person. Good kid. I love him. He's a great guy. This is not influenced by that. This is legitimately, I like his stuff, and other people have agreed with me that he could be a fast mover. And then Herick Hernandez, 4th rounder in 24 out of Miami. Let's get to Burkhalter first. Okay, so last year, coming off of the Tommy John, he had a couple rehab starts, and then he goes to High A Rome. Shout out Emperors. 14 starts. He goes 3-3 with a 2.71 ERA. 69 2/3 innings. It's a nice workload there. 63 strikeouts, so 8.1 per 9, to 18 walks, 2.1 per 9. 3 home runs allowed. The big thing for me, I guess a couple things. One, he was a reliever in college. I don't think he started once in college. He was a straight reliever. So the fact that Auburn announced him as a starter, and then he was able to go into a starting role and do really well, I think is significant. Because one, it gets the workload up, right? It gets him accustomed. And that final season he was at Auburn, that junior year, his draft eligible year, almost half of his outings were more than 3 outs. He had multiple 2 2/3. They called on him early in the 7th because they were in a jam, and he pitched the 7th. He cleaned it up. He came back out for the 8th, and he came back out for the 9th and shut the game down, got the save, and Auburn, one of those was in Omaha at the College World Series. I think it was Stanford, maybe. So he had a little bit of length to him, but he wasn't a starter. And he starts 4 quality starts in the final 2 months of the season, got the pitch count up to about 90 pitches or so, I think was his season high. Threw a 7-inning shutout, had another game where he had 11 strikeouts in one game. And it's a smaller arsenal. It's kind of a power look, right? He's throwing the fastball, sits in the mid-90s. He's touched, I think, 99 with it, right? So a little bit of velocity there. It's not a pure, induced vertical break, backspin, carry up in the zone fastball like a Spencer Strider or something. It's a little bit more of a running look to it. Still a very good fastball. He also throws a cutter. That cutter was taught to him at Auburn by Tim Hudson, former Braves pitcher Tim Hudson, who at the time was the pitching coach for Auburn. It's Tim Hudson's cutter. Tim taught Blake Burkhalter that cutter. Also throws a changeup. It's a similar profile. Not the same, but it's a similar type of pitch mix to a Spencer Strider, right? I do think if there's any sort of concern you have with Blake, I mean, we've seen, he's 6'2", 204. There's a little bit of violence in his delivery, like a little bit of effort in the delivery, but I think he's good. There's a little bit of concerns about the batting average to lefties versus righties. He allowed a 230 to righties and a 288 to lefties last year. And I remember in college, in that 9th inning, you'd see opposing coaches just run up pinch hitter after pinch hitter, all lefties, to try to neutralize that cutter and make him reliant on the changeup to have a non-fastball to throw at those guys. So, a little bit of a question there, but I absolutely think this can be you start off in Double-A, and, you come to spring training first, and then you start off in Double-A, Triple-A, potentially a major league call-up late in the year. I think that's an option, if not earlier. We saw AJ Smith-Shawver go from high A to the majors in 1 year. I think Blake Burkhalter could go Double-A to the majors by the All-Star break, if everything breaks right. The other guy here, Herick Hernandez, I mentioned that Blake Burkhalter had a package, an arsenal similar to Spencer Strider's, kind of jokingly, right? Fastball, a cutter, which, sometimes they just look like hard sliders, and a changeup. Herick Hernandez is a Spencer Strider starter kit, okay? Fastball, velocity's not the same, low to mid-90s, but it's the same kind of look, right? He's a shorter guy, 5'10", so it's like a flat approach angle, high induced vertical break, high carry, so it stays up. Batters swing underneath it, thinking it's going to drop more than it does. That's the Spencer Strider backspin fastball, right? Slider in the low 80s, curveball in the mid to upper 70s, and his changeup's a clear fourth pitch. That is what Spencer Strider throws. Now, Strider's fastball is harder. Strider's slider is harder, right? His curveball, I'm pretty sure the curveball was like upper 70s, like 78, 70, I'm trying to remember, 78, 79, 80 or so. Got to go back and check my notes from when I saw it in spring, but pretty sure Strider's curveball is a little harder. And the whole package is harder than Strider's, but it's the exact same idea here, right? You've got a fastball that stays up in the zone. You've got a slider that, like a gyro slider that drops off of that. When somebody tries to sit on that slider, you can throw a curveball below that. And then if they're sitting on the fastball, you have a changeup that looks the same out of the hand, but messes with their timing a bit. But it's your fourth pitch, and you don't want to throw it unless you have to. Very similar kind of thing here. He was not that great at Miami, right? A lot of walk issues, plenty of strikeouts, but some walk issues, some concerns. He got 2 starts last year, 1 in single A, 1 in high A. So 1 in Augusta, 1 in Rome. 6 2/3 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, no walks to 12 strikeouts. In 70 innings in college, he walked 36 guys. Now, he struck out 95, and that's what you like. But he walked 36 guys in 70 innings. He throws 6 2/3 for the Braves, walks nobody. Now, obviously, he's going to walk guys in a full season sample, but this is a pick. And I talked about this a little bit on Twitter the other day. The best teams at scouting and stuff now are they're not looking at college production, right? They're not even they're looking at traits of individual pitches. This fastball is a very good fastball. Imagine what it would do if you gave it 3 more miles an hour, right? Again, he's sitting 92, 93, 94. Imagine if he's sitting 96 on this. Okay. Atlanta's shown to be pretty good at teaching velocity. Atlanta's shown to be pretty good at getting workloads on guys, letting them actually pitch. Get that slider from low 80s to mid 80s. I've said it on the show a couple times before. It is really hard for any slider to be bad when it's 85 miles an hour or harder. It's really hard for it's really difficult for a hard slider to be a bad slider, just on account of the velocity, how rare that is, and the movement that comes along with that, right? It almost, not entirely, it almost doesn't matter what the individual pitch characteristics are if you're throwing your slider 85, 86 miles an hour, right? So this is a situation, depending on how his offseason goes, his physical development, his cage work, call it cage work, his mound work, all that stuff, and what kind of velocity and control he's showing when he gets into the system next year. This is potentially, I could see you start at high A, and I could see high A, double A, triple A rather quickly, especially if Atlanta has to pull from that group of high minor starters. AJ Smith-Shawver, Hurston Waldrop, Drew Hackenberg, Lucas Braun, Bryce Elder. You have a whole 5-man rotation of all guys that could pitch in the majors in Gwinnett. Like, any of those 5 could get called up. Any of those 5 could stick at the major league level when they get called up. Maybe not Bryce Elder. But the point is, I could see a path to both of these guys impressing when they get in the system early, quickly moving up, and then a situation coming around where you have to call on one of them to make a start at the major league level. And one, I think it could work. I think their stuff's good enough to work at the major league level. And even if you didn't think it could work as a starter, you could use them as relievers, right? Again, Burkhalter was an all-American closer at Auburn. Hernandez has the stuff to do it. He was more of a starter at Miami, but still, you could throw him in the pen. You could throw AJ Smith-Shawver in the pen. You could throw a lot of these guys, these arms into the pen if you weren't trying to focus on having them be starters and pitch every 5th day. This has been Braves Today for Wednesday, January 22nd. You're listening on audio. Do us a favor. Leave us a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when we drop the next episode. And maybe also leave us a 5-star review. Those are kind of cool. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.